Hey, what's up? So it looks like we're live. Let me know you can hear me well. Let me know you can see me well. And thank you so much for being here. So a quick story, and thank you, John, for asking and hoping that I'm feeling better today. Actually, I've been really sick for the last 2 days. It's a nightmare. But I didn't want to cancel this one. I really wanted to do this live stream because if I'd have canceled it, I think it would turn out to be 1 week on, 1 week off, and I didn't want that. Now, aside from that, we have a couple of technical difficulties, and thank you so much, Nancy, for letting me know. Thank you, everyone who let me know that you can hear me. Some minor technical difficulties with my iPad, so I'll have to read your comments off of my phone or just off of my computer. But in any case, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really happy to have you here, and today we're gonna paint this skull as promised. Bit of a still life subject for you. We'll get to that in just 1 second. Let me just give you kind of an intro to today's live. If you ever looked forward to one that's going to be quicker of just me painting and talking less, this is going to be it. Because frankly, I don't know if I can sit through a long session, but I'll do my best. And while we're at it, if you can leave a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. It helps more people find it. So let me see what you're saying, and then we'll get to painting this probably in one go. Just wet and then adding a few shadows, and then I'll answer some more questions, and that's pretty much it. Okay, we won't go again and again and again, and we won't take a lot of breaks for questions today. Okay, so my apologies. So let's see what we have here. John says, "Hi Liron, hope you're feeling better today, my friend." Thank you. Truth be told, I do feel a little better, but it's such a slow recovery. Really, it's a nightmare. Prakash Gayan says, "Hi, first view. Thank you so much for being here. Is this the first live you watch, or are you the first person here? Regardless, thank you." Trish Dorton, hi from Georgia. Jeff Francisco, good evening from the Philippines. Donna Bowman, good morning. Kate Court T, good morning, Liron. I was a day early, looking forward to it today. Oh, you thought it was yesterday? Dave, hi. Liron, Dave in the house, good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much. We are thawing in Ohio, says Barb White. Yeah, it's freezing though, right? It'll be terrible. Mark says, yes, Barb, finally. Nancy G, hi, Liron, and everyone in Ohio, sunny and Akron this morning. Thank you so much for letting me know you can hear me. Sonia Malik says, hi, I want a shout out. There you go. Shout out to Sonia Malik. Hello, Israel from Germany, says Chris P. And Dave says, thank you for being here, even though you're not well. Yeah, and hey, Dazzling Girl says, hi, I'm Yusuf. Welcome aboard, Yusuf. So yeah, I'll do my best to survive this one. Hopefully we get through it. Let me show you what I got here. So we have this skull. It's kind of not a traditional skull because the jaw, the lower part of the jaw isn't here actually, or just the jaw itself. And it's kind of, so the picture said it's from Jerusalem Church in Bruges. So that's interesting. So yeah, it's just kind of a still life subject that has a lot of beautiful transitions to it, some hard shapes, some soft shapes. There are frankly probably an endless of ways of tackling this one, and I have been thinking a lot whether I want to do wet and wet or just go wet on dry directly. There's a lot that can be done here and a lot of different approaches to it. You can just paint directly a la prima. What I think I will do is I do want to show you some wet and wet, especially for the more gradual transitions. So we will do wet and wet first wash, then we'll do shadows and some final details. And this is actually how I did my self-portrait. Not that this is the same, but to get those smoother transitions that you see on the face, it can sometimes be very helpful to do wet and wet for the first stage. So I hope that makes sense. And again, if you're just now joining, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to drop a like. I really appreciate it. Helps more people find this live stream. So I'll just show you first. I did this quick kind of value sketch of it. The values are light because my pencil has limited range, but it's kind of there to show us that these are the darkest darks for the eyes and the shadow here, especially close to the skull itself, okay? Right here as well. And then we have the gradual transition here, and hopefully you can see this, gradual transition from light to slightly dark to pretty dark. So this especially starting from here, starts to get quite dark. And merges with the eye here, the eye socket, and there's this beautiful highlight there. So we'll try establishing a lot of it pretty much wet and wet. What I will probably do is skip the highlights here when pre-wetting, and also the highlights here. There's a shadow I actually forgot, so some around here. Okay, so we'll get started with pre-wetting the paper, and we'll see how it goes. Well, this isn't necessarily an easy piece, but hopefully we'll get through it. It's going to be a quicker process as well. I'm aiming to finish the live stream in an hour, because that's about the timeline I have till the bathroom will call me again. It's been a challenging 2 days, but yeah, today's a little better. And in the meantime, I'll try seeing what you're saying in the chat. Between the washes, I will maybe address some of your questions, but for now, let's get to painting this, okay? So I'm pre-wetting pretty much everything. I will, again, skip some areas for highlights that I want to preserve for later, but for the most part, and I know it's going to be hard right now to see exactly where I wet, but trust me, I will show you in just a moment, okay? And I have this hung here on my wall as well, so that I can see it, like this. Could barely get any work done in the last couple of days. It's been really rough, hard to concentrate, had some fever too. Today's a little better though, so yeah, grateful for that. I think we're in the right trajectory. So I'll show you in just a moment what I pre-wet here. And again, this is going to be a live stream that's a little more punchy, a little more to the point. So hopefully you can see the sheen. Let me turn on the other light that I usually have on. And you can see the sheen. There we go. Now you see up top it's starting to dry. I'm going to go over it again. Okay. See? You want this to really be wet. And then we can start establishing some of the shapes of light and shadow. Mainly the gradual transition. So I'm going to switch to a bit of a smaller brush. I'm going to use mostly warm here. So this kind of a burnt sienna color. And the areas I want to tackle especially are this gradual transition from the right side of the skull to the left. Okay. See, this smooth transition is going to be really hard to get later on, really difficult. So I want to get it now. Like so. There's this shadow coming through here. All of this side is in the shadow, but again, I mostly care for these very gentle changes. Okay. These are the areas I really want to establish now. The rest is not as important. Okay, so you see like this. And I'm not, sorry for moving the camera, I'm not dabbing, I'm just doing this with one brush mark. Remember, if you continuously move the brush, it won't spread out as much, the paint. Okay, so here we go, like this. Now, as I move down, I'm going to vary the temperature a bit. Start injecting some blue into the mix. So here we go. Contrary to what you may think, I actually have some blue here. And I'm going to start putting that in. This is too strong. I want it to be of similar value. So here we go. Just use some more dampness to move it around. And if you feel like things are starting to dry on you and there's a hair that's bugging you, there we go. You can always use the sprayer just to give it some more time. But don't worry about like getting each and every shape, because that's really not what we're doing in this wash, okay? We're just kind of establishing a overall structure to the more blended areas. For example, another area I want to get in is this. See? And I can actually use this shaded spot here to move and then drop it here so that we won't get too much movement. Here, I'll have to soak some of that back. And this is how you get these somewhat of smoother transitions. You can use this opportunity to push it farther and actually get the darker darks as well. We probably won't get these to be super dark just yet. But you can. For example, if I want to finish with the eye, let's add some violet as well, because the violet gets really dark. I can, in theory, already do that and get that smooth transition from light to dark here. And remember, as the paper is drying, it's going to be a little easier to get darker values, but you also have to use thicker paint. Okay, well, I'll have to go over it again and again, so I'm not too worried about that right now. Okay, there's a lot of freedom in this step. It's kind of like you're doing the best you can to prepare for the next stages, but whatever you didn't get in this stage, it's still fine. Okay, so this is how I want you to look at it. It's preparation, and the more you get done here, it can help, but it's not the end of the world if you didn't get something here. But again, my emphasis here is on the smoother transitions. You see these here. Every smooth transition there is here, I'll try and get now. Okay, a bit more blue for the area where the teeth are, like this. Maybe I can also get some darker shadows here. Just a bit. And this is pretty good. Do I want to do more? I want to establish stronger shadows up top. I think we're really close to what I want it to be, but let's take it a step further and try doing a little more here. Maybe it'll save us some work down the line. Probably should have used a bit of warmer color there. It's fine. Let's warm it up a bit. There we go. To help it move, we can also slightly tilt the paper. And I don't know if I'll call it an ugly stage, but again, remember, you don't see things fully yet. It's not a full context, so it's fine if it doesn't look like the best in the best state. Okay, so what I want to do now is dry it, answer some questions, and then we'll move on to the second wash. We're actually 40-60% done. That's really all there is to it. So let me do that. Okay, so now that we're like 90% dry, I can move on. I just want to make sure that I'm charging my phone while I do that, because again, I have to rely on it instead of the iPad. Now let's address some questions you may have. So let me see what you're asking here. And by the way, I forgot to mention, I'm just like, don't expect much from me today. I put a link to my sketch stage if you want to recreate the same sketch as I did. This one before it was painted, I forgot to mention it. Be sure to check that out. So let's see here. I want to shout out Yusuf. Vanessa Huygens says, hi, I'm in hospital. Nice to watch you. I hope you're feeling well. Let me know, and hopefully we can encourage you. Paulo Enrico, hello, I'm from Brazil. Arania's art and crafts and vlogs. It's so difficult. It doesn't have to be. But yeah, this isn't easy. You have to really get the feeling for watercolor. Dave, hey Liron, did you get my email I sent via Instagram? I believe I have. I will go over it. I didn't do anything, like no work for the past 3 days or so I will get to it. Okay. Laura Merrifield says, good morning, evening everyone. Marjorie Johnson, been painting for an hour here in New York State. Yeah, having trouble with nighttime street scenes. They say paint what you know, and this is something I don't know, but I love others' works. Yeah, it's really challenging. Night scenes overall are not the easiest subject, for sure. It's just such a different, it's kind of you have to switch gears a bit because you're working from dark to light in a way. It can be very tricky with watercolor, but it is possible, and it is possible to create beautiful results. Thelma Blake, good morning. Liron. Christine Bourgeois, good morning from Minnesota. Maggie Freeman, hi Liron, this is interesting. Maggie in France. Domo says you. John Watercolor looks like Hershey. Yeah, a bit. Marjorie Johnson, I bought a skull for one of my daughter's snake cages. She doesn't get it till I paint a picture of it. Yeah, that's great. If you can have it like real life. I actually have a skull here for art reference. And I also have this head. Let me show you. This eerie, creepy head. Hopefully you can see. So yeah, you got this one and an actual kind of reddish weird skull. I don't know why it's red, but in any case, did I read Maggie's message? Hi Liron, this is interesting. Maggie and friends. Yes, I think I have. John, I hope you feel better soon. Thank you so much. Paint and Brush says hello. Marjorie Johnson mixing Jane's Gray on the paper. This is actually just burnt sienna, French ultramarine, and a bit of carbazole violet kind of. PV, can I remember which one it was? Was it 19 or 23? I don't remember. But yeah, it kind of looks like Jane's Gray. I know a lot of people like Jane's Gray. It's a beautiful color. Susan Lynn, good morning everyone. Thank you, Liron. Lola NP36, take care of yourself, get well and feel better soon. We'll always be here for you. You're the best. Thank you so much for that. It's really been rough, and I get frustrated very easily if I can't work for a long time. Aside from the fact that I just feel behind, and I always feel like I sometimes I feel like there's no staying in place. It's either moving forward or backward. So if I don't work, I feel like I'm moving backwards, even though I know that's not exactly true. So I really appreciate that. That's really nice to hear. Vespa for Jen. Hi Liron and everyone. Nice day here in Granite. Do you say granite or granite? Granite Bay? Like, I know what it is, but I don't think I ever had to pronounce it. Bay, California. Feel better soon. Thank you. Dazzling Girl, please show your painting. Yes, I will. Let me show it to you now. Perfect timing as I finished going over all of the messages for now. All the chats. So here it is. Let me show it to you large again here. So quite nice again. What was important for me is getting these smooth transitions, especially here and here. Okay, and here as well, kind of where the mouth is. Aside from that, the rest we can establish in the next washes. And in fact, I want to show you a really cool trick for establishing these properly. So I'll probably have to do another round of drying just for a second, okay, just to make sure it's fully dry. It looks dry, but if you actually, it's impossible to see through the camera, but it is a little damp, especially in these areas. Okay, so let me dry it just a bit. You will see the difference. And then I want to show you a cool trick for if you're nervous for the second wash, okay? So let me get that done. A bit of a quicker one today again. YouTube. Okay, so I think we're good. We can move on. So let me show you. Sometimes, when it's time for the second wash, it can be quite stressful. So I want to give you permission to start working with something that's very clear. Because very often people have this kind of a desire or need or feeling like they should start working on perhaps an area that's very big. Like, for example, improving this gradation. You don't have to. You can actually work from on a very rich shadow you see, or something that's more obvious. So let me show you. We always have constructions here. I hope that doesn't come through too bad. Let me show you. I'll just grab a bit of my trusty carbazole and nickel azo yellow. These mute nicely together and they get dark relatively easily. So, need a bit more paint. Let me spray these a bit, just to get them to reawaken. They actually reawaken very easily. I just needed to spray them a bit. Okay. And then what you can do is start with something you see very clearly, like the nose. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this dark value here. Okay. Because that's a very clear part of the painting. Now I am leaving a gap in the middle. You will see why in a few seconds. Because there is this, what is it, the septum, the thing that separates the two, not the deviated septum. That's what I had. And I will make it darker, but not as dark as this, okay? And that way you remove some pressure because you tackled something that looked obvious. You knew how to do. You don't have to start with a large and intimidating shape. You can start with a smaller one and work your way and work up your courage towards something that's clearer. So now that I feel a little better about this painting, a little more clarity, I'm going to start filling in this eye socket. Now look at what we have here. It starts a little lighter and then it goes darker. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with a bit of warmth and keep it, it's not super light, but it's quite light. So and I don't have to follow exactly what I see. I can just kind of treat the top left side like that. And then I'm going to switch immediately to a very dark mix like this. And then you get this beautiful gradual transition, okay? And maybe even more blue in there, just to make it cooler. It actually does show here in person, but through the camera it's very hard to see the accurate temperature. And now what I'm going to do is look at the transition. It still has to be gradual. So I'm going to create that gradual transition. A bit of coolness I actually want to add. I don't know why. So let's do that. Like this. See? I'm adding and softening this. Okay? Softening this edge. Actually, it should also go here. Like this. And then I can blend this lower edge onto the paper. Blending is not going to work as well as the first wash because as soon as you apply a layer of paint, the paper loses some of its properties. That's just how it is, but that's fine. And now I'll actually go ahead and connect it to the entirety of the left side of the face. That should be much darker. Okay, so we're going to start here. Now I wonder how I should do this because I do need to start from the top. Let's do it this way. I'm going to start with just some water. Maybe it has a bit of paint in it, but that's fine. I can even use the sprayer to just get it still quite a smooth transition. And then I'm going to gradually connect it to what I already have. Start with warm, like this. And then go for a bit of a cooler mix. And I'm still not going to touch the background here, okay? Now it may seem a little too dark, but trust me, it's not. It's actually pretty close, I believe, to what it should be. Maybe not perfect, of course, but hopefully it is close enough, okay? So here we go. And now that we're kind of in the groove, we can start feeling a little more confident and work on this large shape that is the right side of the face, basically. Beautiful shape, and I do want some of this blue to show. So here we have a bit of a sharper transition. Let me see. There's a gap here. Sharp transition, and then it moves on to a softer one. So I'll just use some water, help soften it a bit, help the paint move a bit, and connect it to a cooler shadow here. Maybe that's too cool, don't have to exaggerate. A bit of warmth. There isn't really a hard and fast rule for that, so you kind of have to develop your sense of it in a way, of like the temperature. Will come with experience, but usually when something stands out too much for me, I know that maybe the temperature is the contrast is too strong, okay? So, and by the way, notice what big of a difference this small dab did. Sometimes I'll know that if something jumps at me too much where it shouldn't, I use too strong of a contrast of temperature, and then I'll rethink it and change it a bit. So it was too blue, added some warmth to it. Now we have to get that eye socket a little darker, because it's still wet, and this is a magical opportunity to define it now, not later when it's wet on dry, but now. This, see? And I'll even let this part stay the same because it is a little lighter. So I'll kind of leave it at that. If you want to help it spread out a bit, you can always do this. Again, spray a bit, will help it move. But that's pretty much it. Now, one thing that bugs me a bit, that I messed up, my bad, is that this transition is too hard. So let me try and blend it a bit. Let me get a paper towel, one sec. Here we go. So I had to run for it. So remove the camera, had to. I just want to blend some of that because it really needs to be a gradual transition. There we go, a little better. Still could have been better, this whole transition. I can always darken here and let it flow a bit. Let's try it out here. I know it's not fully dry, but I think it'll still work out. Like this. Use some water on it. And then probably I'll have to dry it fast. So just 1 second. So we're good. Now, we're kind of 70% through this one. Let me walk you through what's left. It's not much actually. What we need to do is add this bit of a darker shadow to the right, because it will create a nice separation between the skull and the cast shadow. We don't have to actually, you could leave it at that, but I think I want that. We need to darken this shadow, and we need to darken some of the area around the skull, and that will really help bring it to life. Which is funny because it's a skull, but it will. Okay, so let me see what you're writing in the chat, and then we'll continue real fast. We're really actually closer to finishing this than you think. So let's see. Oh, actually, not many messages. That's good. I can handle it. Lisbeth Rodriguez says, "Hi, you look very handsome today." Thank you. I think I look like crap though, because I'm not feeling too well. But thank you so much for that. Zaid Thakur, hi, did I miss a lot in terms of any tips? No, Zaid, I basically just showed this. Let me see if you can see it. Basically showed a prep sketch next to the reference. Tips, I said we can tackle this wet and wet. We can paint wet on dry and kind of wing it with the areas. We can do it alla prima, directly putting in whatever shapes we see. All sorts of ways of tackling this. By the way, I forgot to add this shadow here. I will add some highlights and shadows here that you will love. Background, not too much. Just the first 70% of the demo. That's it. But you're good, no worries. Zaid also said Liron would do a how to paint like for Andy Evanson and Mark Tara Holmes, the way you did for Tim Wilmot. Andy Evans. I see what you mean. This could be interesting. I may do that. We'll see. I may do that. Like a how to paint like. I'll screenshot it. I'll think about it. I'll definitely consider. Nancy G, your paintings look cool. Thank you. Your painting looks cool. Thank you. Always share the best tips. Thank you. I can't read. Thanks. You always share the best tips. Thank you so much, Nancy. Of course I am. Sorry I'm late again. It seems like I've missed quite a bit. No worries. Not a lot, actually. FR4 says, wow, thank you so much. Dave says, looking great already. Thank you, Dave. I wish I could go longer, but I'm like, I really need to rest. But I had 2 days of just doing nothing, so it's good. I'm in a good place. Just need some more rest. Glorimar Wilson, hello. Thanks for live. Wishing you always the best because you're a nice artist kind of guy. Cheers. Thank you so much, Glorimar. So I think we can actually move on and start adding some details. So we have this shadow here that I mentioned before. Now, I want to keep it similar to this, okay? Because it reads as the same motif. It's kind of a diagonal line. You see this shadow that is being cast, it's diagonal. And I know it looks super dark, but actually, I'll still keep it fairly light. This blue is really nice and strong. Light and diagonal, okay? I wonder if I should darken this part of the skull, but I think for now I'll leave it as it is. This shadow here, maybe I will just a bit, we'll see. What could possibly go wrong, as they say, famous last words, for a painting, but we'll give it a try. So I used a bit of water, I'll pick up some thick paint, as thick as I can, add a bit of purple to it, because it will preserve some of its warmth. Like this. And then we'll use some of this. Help it move a bit. Maybe we'll have to also use the brush to help it move just a bit. There we go. I think that's a little better. The shadow there should have been a little stronger, so that's good. We're still not at the stage of just final touches. So there's quite more to go through, but I wanted to do this one real quick. Here there's a cast shadow, not a cast, but the side of the skull. Goes like this. This should be a little more blended, and I think we're good for this part. Let me just pick this up. Okay, we're good. Now, you see this shadow here in the little crease internal section of the nose, so we'll get that next. Now I wonder if I want to use warm or cool. Let's use cool. Cool looks good here. So you see I'm following the kind of irregular direction I see there, irregular width, and we're good. That's good. And this is pretty much it for that. Where do we have some more major shadows? I think for now we can move on to the next stage, which is the background, I would say. Before we get to this shadow, which I'm still wondering and debating whether I should do, let's get to the background. Now, if you watched my last video, I talked about luminosity, how much a color shines in the context of the full painting, okay? So here we have the strongest kind of orangey burnt sienna, and here the strongest blue. So to make the skull the focal point and to shine, we'll use neutral, kind of like here. It's very important that we use a neutral color here in anything that is not the skull. Okay, so I'm going to use a bit of everything here, blue. Let me get some test paper, as always. I want to make sure it's just not too biased in any direction, okay? That's actually quite good. We can work with that. And also, I'll probably keep it a little lighter than it should be. I do need to go a little darker, but I'll keep it a little lighter for a very simple reason. I don't want it to compete with the skull in terms of values as well, okay? This is a bit yellowy. We'll add a bit of blue, a little bit of red. Should have probably mixed it beforehand, but that's fine. And here we go. I'm gonna apply this mix to the paper. Now here you have quite a lot of freedom. Just make sure to go slightly darker than the actual skull, because the entire goal here is to make it pop a bit. Okay. So I will actually go a little. No, you know what? That's pretty close. I wonder if I should go darker. Let's not go darker for now. Let's keep to this kind of a mix. Now it kind of ends around here. You don't have to follow it, because it doesn't really matter if you follow it to the T, but you can break it off. What I mean is wherever you want, really. What I would do is avoid breaking it off with a hard line, because that will, again, take some attention away. Let's use another brush just to help it move a bit more and tilt the paper a bit. Like this. Like that, that's good. That'll work. Continue this here. I'll probably go all around, I think. You see, it's a relatively quick demo. Not as complex. Usually when it's a single object, it's a little easier. Now, as we get to this, where the cast shadow is, I don't need the background to be darker. So I'm actually gonna lighten it up. And that's that. That's done for the background. I can do this here. And at this stage, we're doing well. We have a couple of things that are missing. I'm actually still debating whether or not I want to put this, I want to make this shadow darker. It's an interesting thought, because it could be left as it is right now. But I think we'll get it a little darker, at least in some places. Because why not? I mean, it's let's try, we'll see. It's not so much as it will ruin it, it just may end up not improving it. Let's try it. I'll try something a little different. I'll put in, we always experiment during the lives, so here goes. I'll put a bit of dark paint here, like this. This is how I sometimes like to do these things. First I put in the dark paint, and then I use wet paint to move it a bit like this. See? Kind of like that. And connect it up here. Here I'm going to keep it light because the skull itself is dark. But here, I'm going to darken it a bit more. Here, I mean. That works. That looks nice. I think that'll work. Let's continue with that kind of a line of thinking. I'm going to put some dark paint here, because it's really important for this to be lighter than this. I think, if anything. It's not super, like, this isn't really what will make or break the painting. I was just scared that it won't improve it or overwork it, but I actually think it looks okay. So we're good. Now, if you feel like something may dry unevenly or not look good enough, again, you can always spray some water on it. Kind of will help things move a bit. Let's get rid of the water that was spilled on this dark spot. And I think this is good. I think this works well. I want to add this dark dot next to the nose that I see there, right around here. Looks nice. Yeah, we're good. And then I can help smooth it a bit with some water around the lower edges. And we're really close to done. So the only thing we're really left, and yes, I have exaggerated this highlight. That's fine. I like it. Let me examine it and see if we're missing something. I did kind of mess up this section, because there should be a kind of mid-value socket before it gets super dark around here. Let's do that. Remember that blending edges on top of an existing layer of paint will always be a little different because the paper reacts differently. I accidentally touched it too with paper, but I think this looks a little better. And now all we have left to do really, I think, is to add some texture. So let me show you how I do that. It's going to be quite fun. So this is dry, which is good. I want to show you what happens is we have some dents in the skull. So what will happen is you'll have these dents here, okay? And it's a really cool effect where let's say this is the surface of the skull. Or I can just show you with paint. Well, I can't because I have to wait for it to dry. Let me show you here. And then there's a dent. So, let me see if I, yeah, okay. So there's gonna be a shadow to the left, but then a highlight to the right, like this. And I know you can probably barely see. Let me darken the background a bit more. This, you see? And what this does, it creates the effect that this is actually dented, okay? Because when it's dented, the surface goes like this, and then this part gets a lot of light, and this part doesn't. It gets less light. So you have a shadow here and a bit of a highlight there. And you can actually see it right where I'm pointing. Imagine this extending all the way to the middle of the forehead, and you see this dent there. Okay, so let me put in some shadows first, and then we'll add the highlights. This will give it some texture, because right now it's smooth. It's really a smooth skull, which I don't know if that makes sense anatomically. The skull is smooth? I have no idea. So usually I don't add too much texture. You know me, I believe that a lot of the texture comes from the outline and the overall context, but in this example I will, because I do feel like it's important to really provide a message here, okay? So I will put some of it here. An important part of the story here is the dent in the skull, to me, is its texture. And because we're focusing on just one object, as I mentioned, we can actually afford to do that. And this is the greatness of still life, and especially simpler ones, okay? Because you can actually focus on the smaller details here without going into overwork mode too much, which is really hard to do, for example, in a landscape painting. Even landscapes that are considered sometimes by some people easier, not really, because you still have a scene to take care of. You still have an overall composition that's a little more complex than just a singular object in the middle of the page. And if you can take one lesson from here, it's that this is more ideal for this kind of a thing, really. Just a single object. So I think this is good in terms of overall texture. Now we'll add the highlight next to it. And we'll do that with my favorite Jaune Brilliant PWC paint. I love this one. I always use it for highlights. Maybe I should zoom in a bit. Let's zoom in a bit. So you're able to see some more detail. Sorry about the shakiness. I feel totally shaky myself, so yeah. Okay, that's not gonna work. Let's see this. Better? Yeah, that's gonna work. Don't fall? Good. Okay, so we'll just grab a bit of this opaque paint and I'll place it to the right of the dents, to the right of the dark spots. And that's what's going to provide this beautiful effect, okay? And this is really something I haven't discussed a lot on the channel, so it's a good opportunity to do that. So, a bit of a highlight to the right. See? You'll barely be able to see it. I'll hold it up closer later on, but for now, maybe you can catch some glimpses of it. See how it feels like it's dented a bit? Now, obviously, the more you go into the shadow, it's not going to be as prominent because even the side that's more close to that's facing the light more is still in the shadow. So you have to use it sparingly for some areas. It really will depend on the shape of the face. Like this. Like here I won't do it. I won't go as far, okay? And just for fun, I'll add it here as well in case it's going to be visible. And I think this is it. Like this is, you don't need much to add that texture. I know it's not as detailed as the painting. I could go on and add a lot more of these, but I don't feel the need to. I actually really like the way it looks. Let me hold it up a little closer. So hopefully you can see, and hopefully it feels like dents, kind of damage in the texture of the skull. One more thing I want you to have in mind. Notice how I left this paper white? where it should have probably been as light as this, which is a thin coat of paint. I did that for just for, I don't know what to say, for convenience. Okay, this thing, for convenience sake, because had I covered this with water, I'll have to somehow make a separation between the shadow and the light, and I just prefer painting around it. Okay, if you want to dumb it down a bit, you can just add a bit of a thin coat over it of paint. You don't have to keep it as prominent as it is. But in any case, yeah, I think this is it. I think this is pretty much it. Look at this, the teeth here. That looks really cool. I think the dent in the shape of the, I don't know where the gums should be. I don't know what it is even. But I really like it. And you can again add a lot more of these. Add a lot more of these here. You can see quite a lot of these in the. Where's my finger here? In the forehead. Actually, in this area on the skull. But you don't need that much. In my opinion, it looks really good. So in any case, let me read some of your comments. Let me know if you have any questions or if you think I should add something, I should change something. I'm always going to miss some stuff just because I'm focusing on a lot of things simultaneously. Laura Merrifield says, Liron, I watched the video on vibrant colors. Still having issues with my painting washes, too light or too dark. Any tips? Do the value exercise I showed in a different video. Try and go. So here's what you do. You draw a couple of, let me close this. You draw a couple of squares like this. Okay? And you aim to fill them with a light, medium, medium dark, dark value. And how do you do that? You use the palette, you mix something that I call tea consistency. This idea is taken from Joseph Zbukvich, obviously. And what you want to do is, let me show you on the other palette, because this one has no white background. What you want to do is mix something that's very flowy on the palette and very light. Kind of like what I showed you not to do in that video, okay? So you have something that is really, you see how much it beads and moves on the palette? What you'd call tea, because it's very thin. It's almost like what a tea would look like, barely have any color. So then you fill in a square with that. And then what you do is you reach for that same color and you add a bit of it, and then you fill in the next square. And then you put a bit more of it and you fill in the next square. Then you pull a bit more of it and you fill in the next square. And what you will get is a very gradual transition. Very gradual transition from light to dark, and then you'll find the optimal point. Okay? Now, other things that can happen there is maybe you just need more experience with mixing in general, meaning when you mix it on the palette, you still aren't able to read as clearly if it's going to be, how much lighter it's going to dry. So you think you're going strong enough, but you aren't. Or maybe sometimes people get nervous and they just use tons of paint with no reason. So try starting from a thin wash on the palette and slowly adding to it. Don't go super dark and then try to dilute it. Go the other way around. Start with light, start with water on the mixing area, and then add a bit of paint and a bit more and a bit more. That's how you slowly learn how to judge it properly. Some other problems could be the paint or the paper. Maybe it's not good quality. That can also affect it sometimes. But for the most part, I think this is the solution. Thelma Blake, love listening and watching you. Thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, work monochromatic, Laura. That can also help. If you work monochromatically, very often you will have an easier time matching the value in black and white, basically, is my point. Do I have tissue here? No. Let me just get one for a second. Sorry for the dead air, had to blow my nose. Okay. Vespa for Jen. Liron, can you please show us your spray bottle? Yes. It wasn't meant for this originally. I don't know if you can see it. Let me show you in the face camera. Stay spray. So yeah, usually the best bottles for this are not the ones that were meant for it. I don't know why, it's so hard finding ones that are good. It took me a long time to find this one. I had a really good one, but one time I did plein air and a car ran over it. I didn't pay attention. I was painting in front of a parking space and a person wanted to come get out there from the parking space with their car, and they asked me if they could move, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll grab my stuff. So I moved it, and I forgot to pick up the water sprayer. Stayed on the floor. The person just ran over it with the car. It's not their mistake. It was totally my fault. But yeah, so that was a major loss. I really liked that one, but this one's better. So yeah. John, sorry, we'll have to go now. Liron, take care. Hope you feel better soon. Thank you so much, John. And we're almost done here. I told you, I promised a quick live stream, just an hour. So we're 9 minutes shy of an hour from an hour. How do you say that? I never use test paper. Maybe I should, says Dave. Yep, you should. Of course you should. I find that very often I'll have to use it just to see what it looks like. And by the way, Laura, this could be a solution for you too. Maybe you're just not testing the paint before you put it to the real paint. Laura says it popped already. Thank you so much. Whoops, the chat jumped on me. Dave says, skull popping. This skull is so cool. Thank you so much, Vespa for Jen. Thank you, Dave. Chris Bryan, omnipotent. What is that? Is drawing? I'm not sure what you asked. You mean, like, what did I use? What is that? What is that? Drawing? I'm not sure. Let me know what you meant. Mark, oh my god, for me it's quite laggy. Sorry about that. Barb White, don't forget about the septum. Yes, the septum. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Barb, I really appreciate it. I'll get it now. Let's do this. Completely forgot about the septum. So here we go. Now it should be dark. White dark. But not as dark as the darkest blacks around it. So here we go. A bit of everything, really. Thank you so much for reminding me. Can't believe I forgot. Test it out. So this is close. It's just too blue. So let me neutralize a bit. Let's see what it looks like. A bit more water there. I'm trying not to go over the areas I already painted, but if I have, it's not the end of the world. Here we go. And the pointy part at the bottom. And this is it, yeah, I think that's good, that works. There we go. Thank you so much for reminding me, yeah. Made no sense for it to be so light. Inokenti Shavrovsky. Hi there, it's a man's skull. Eye places are more quadratic. Had no idea. This is how it works. Raul Camble, you have added an extra highlight between the noses. It is very light in the reference photo. You've added an extra highlight between the nose. It's very light. You're not talking about the septum, right? I'm not sure. Let me know. And by the way, there are a lot of small touches you can still do. Like I could add, and I do see it in the reference photo, I could add a bit of, you see how there's this darker kind of outline around this part? We'll also give it some texture. I'm not sure why that happens, probably the direction of the rotation of the bone there, something like this. There's actually a lot you can still do and add some small details. I just like the way it looks now. You have added an extra highlight between the nose. It's very light in the reference photo. I'm not sure. Prathamesh Sawan says, very nice drawing, thank you. Barb White, would it be possible just to lift to create a highlight for the dents? Yes, that'll be possible, but here's the thing. And it's actually something I'm looking forward to doing. To get this thin of a highlight by lifting, maybe by scrubbing with a brush or something like this, you need to use a smaller brush with very short stable so that you can scratch the paper. I just don't have one. If I'd use this big of a brush and awkwardly kind of bring it back like thin like that, it may be a challenge. So you'll need, for best results, you'll need a synthetic brush or a brush with very short bristles. There are actually brushes made for lifting, by the way, that you can get. This will be the best solution. I'm actually looking for one right now to do thinner highlights, like for hair and stuff like that. Actually looking for something like this. Glarmar Wilson, there is a nuisance on top of nose opening. Not sure what that means. Zaid Thakur, most artists use some good light source in their paintings that hit the most of the element and gives good shadows and isn't backlit. How does Zbogvich make even backlit scenes look amazing? First, backlit or painting against the light works really well in watercolor because it combines all the different areas. Second, just experience. Joseph Z has worked so hard for decades to get to where he is. He really masters this look, and he mastered a lot of types of looks, like the whole rural cow kind of scenes and foggy background, foggy trees. It's just experience. It is possible. Pretty much any scene is possible if you practice enough and you build enough experience. But I would say paint what you love. If you love backlit scenes, this is just easier. I'll admit, I paint more scenes like, by the way, I recognize something else I want to fix. But I paint more scenes that look like this because it's easier. I'll be the first to admit it. When you have a strong light source or a strong sunlight that comes from the front or from the side, it's just easier. But it is possible to paint pretty much any light and shadow condition. I just wanted to darken some of the socket around. That's it. It is possible. Don't let it deter you and give it a try. It's just really years of experience. That's the only thing really I believe it is. That's my toilet paper. Here we go. Just extend that socket a bit. Hopefully that'll work out. Is there a process or a technique? Yeah, it's just that really. If you ask about a process for Against the Light, that'll be combining and merging together a lot of shapes. Alvaro Castanet does that too, because when the light comes from the back, it casts shadows towards you, and so you connect a lot of these. I hope that makes sense. Vespa for Jen, love the dent tip. Thank you. Lady T, that's awesome. Marjorie Johnson, have you ever used a red value finder? Red value finder. Oh wow. The chat really jumps. I get all the messages simultaneously, so I get like 20 new messages. Have you ever used a red value finder? I'm not sure what that is. A red value finder. Let me know. I'll Google it. Red value finder. I'm curious because reds are always the hardest for me to read. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I know. I've seen it before. Haven't used it. Interesting. Maybe I should. John Bennett, I would push the center line of the nose cavity into shadow a bit more. Just a possibility. Thank you. Yes, we have. For sure, I just forgot about it. Dash Tank says, I agree. Weasley is our king. That was a great tip, starting with water, then adding paint little by little. Yes, exactly. Sometimes I don't know what tips will click, so I just try to throw a bunch of stuff at you. That's really what I do, always. I think, by the way, I'll add some more. We'll read some messages, and then I'll add a few more. I feel like, you know what, let's do it now. I feel like I am missing some dents here. It feels really more prominent in the reference photo. So let's do this. Just here, around this area, I feel like there's a lot more that I just didn't put in. It is important for the texture. So as always, I say I won't add anything, and then I end up adding a lot of things. There's this major dent here that I completely forgot about. Like this. Huh. Yeah, sometimes you gotta open your eyes a little more and take a break maybe. Then you see all of these things. Yeah, so I think that's much better actually. There's a nice dent that goes like this. Do you see that? That's really interesting. And then underneath it, there's a highlight. That's really interesting. And whatever you do, try making these random. That's really important too. Just in random spots. Don't be too repetitive. But yeah, I think this is enough. This is close to enough. Yeah, that's a little better. I think it just gives it a more better feeling for the material. Laura Merrifield, thank you, Liron. Today will be practice day. Yeah, definitely. Devote some time practicing that in vacuum. It will really help. Marjorie Johnson, my favorite spray bottle was a mini spray for eyeglass cleaner. Oh, cool. Haven't thought of that one. It was better than the Fine Mist sprayer I got from Dick Blick. Definitely. Yeah, you won't find the best sprayers in art stores, sadly. Zaid Thakur, is the 3-wash approach the only best approach in watercolor? As people like Joseph Zbogvich break out of it a lot? Would you consider it elitism by people that preach that it is the only way to go? Anyone who preaches one way to go is just wrong. But here we didn't do a 3-wash approach or 3 layers approach. We did an initial wash and then we just added shadows and details. So you're free to, and I've shown you before also how I do just wet and wet. One wash and you're done with 90% of the painting. So there's definitely more than one way to go. I've shown you a la prima work that you just paint directly what you see. A lot of it will work. You just have to really find what works best for you, what you enjoy the most. And by the way, there are a lot more nuances in the shapes of light and shadow in the reference photo. You see how, for example, there's a darker area here. There's a bit of a darker area here and here. I'm not gonna get each and every one of those. There's a bit of a darker area here. I don't really care about them, but you could work more into this, more and more and more and more, and add more. I just don't see it necessary for this one, but feel free to. I mean, a lot of people think I don't know if a lot of people think I finished the paintings too fast, but if you think it needs more, add more. 456 Barrett asks, hello, can I ask something? Sure, ask it. Ask away, I'm here. Mark, Ohio, shouldn't there be some shadow on the left of the pencil line to the left of the eye socket? To the left of the left, oh, you mean here. Yeah, you could, but honestly, I'll edit with a pencil, I don't really care. I know it, there is a bit of it there. It's mostly that this area is slightly darker than this. You can add quite a lot. I just like it the way it looks right now. But yeah. I'm the kind of counter anti-hero to anyone who overworks. I underwork. I just, as soon as I feel like I like the painting, I'll just stop, and I don't care if I can add more details. That's very often the case. Don't be mistaken by my approach of always saying, oh, this is done and adding more, and this is done and adding more. I actually know when a painting is done for sure, and sometimes I add things that are really small cosmetics that wouldn't make a difference, but very often, as soon as I feel like it's done, it's done. I don't need to add anything. But yeah, you're right. There is a darker area there. Thelma Blake, wishing you the best with your recovery. You're always a delight to watch and learn from. Thank you so much. Yusuf, thank you. I've been waiting for this video. Thank you so much for being here, Yusuf, as always. Zaid Takura, what is it that sets the masters like Herman Pekelas, Bukovic, Andy Evanson apart from us and makes them masters? It's just experience. It's just experience. Decades. If something is between you and them, it's decades of practice, I would say. Deepali Vakare. Wow, nice teacher, thank you so much. 456 Barrett. I'm trying to learn watercolor from internet only. I don't have a chance to get educated in real life, I assume. Generally watching your videos, but especially when it comes to techniques. How can I understand? I would say that a couple of things. First, yes, watch a couple of videos just to get the basics of techniques. And by the way, I get a message that this stream is a little slow. Sorry if it's choppy right now. But for 456 Barrett, one, watch a couple of basic videos, learn kind of what to try, but then just spend a lot of time painting. And I don't care what it is, like just grab a piece of paper. And very often, I do think people overthink even practicing. Like all you have to do is just do this. Put a bit of paint here, grab a bit of paint and put it next to it, see how they react, go like this, see what happens, go like this. This is the best way to practice because this is how you learn. What will happen if I bring in some water? What will this do? You train your brain to know what the paint will do before it actually does it, so that you have this spidey sense, you know what to do. That's the only way of improving, really. You can watch as many videos as you want, but you have to practice. Don't go too deep on videos and techniques. Watch a few basic ones and then just practice all the time. That's the main thing I can say for you. I'm doing good, or where is my mistakes? Yes, I can understand. Oh yeah, okay. How can I understand if I'm doing good, or where is my mistakes? Yes, I can understand from the result, but I don't know what causes it. So yeah, the question is, if you go over your painting and you ask yourself, is this area dark enough? Is this area too dark? Did I get the color right here, or did I not? Is the shape right, or is it not? Ask yourself all of these questions and carefully analyze it. You will find the thing that you're lacking in, or the thing you messed up. I hope that makes sense. You have to be really methodical when you analyze the painting and ask yourself, what happened? Now, another thing is what I just said. Practice this. Just put paint, put water, add them two together. See how they work together, because that's the only way to foresee what will happen. And that way you don't have to ask yourself at the end why you messed up. You'll know instantly while you're painting. You'll be like, oh, this is too dark, oh, this is too light, I should have gone with this section before this section, because it would have been easier to get an even flow. Okay, you will get this by doing that kind of a thing. Just you have to paint all the time, and paint, like, don't be frustrated by failures. Just do another one and another one and another one and another one. Run through paper. Use cheap paper in the beginning if you have to. Run through materials. That's fine. That's the only way to learn. And feel free to email me. I'll try giving it a look, and I'll tell you what I think went wrong. Glormar Wilson, I just need to see the specifics. Glormar Wilson, dark spot on the tip of the nose opening. On the tip of the nose opening. Is it like here? I don't know. I'm not sure. Dave, contre-jour. Yes, against the light. I think that's what we were talking about. Can you do some backlit demos? Yes, I will. And I believe I have a few backlit demos. I have a few, mostly cityscapes. I'll try doing more. Yes. Raul Campbell, paint Indian stuff. Yeah, India has beautiful views. I should probably. Yusuf says it looks very good. Thank you. You are my watercolor master. Thank you. Working towards improving always. There's a long way to go. Raul Campbell, the process of adding layers of color is called tonal values. So adding layers of color. I don't know if the process is called that. Tonal value is just the value. But let me know if you meant something else. Marjorie Johnson, it gave me a great idea for practice session. Going to paint my skull in burnt sienna wash and glaze with French ultramarine. Would it work to create a James Gray? Yeah, for sure. I mean, try both ways. Try starting with warm, going with cool, or the other way around. Or simultaneously put this next to that. That can also work. Sima Modi, marvelous and a little horrible. Thank you. Marjorie Johnson, I'm trying to mix colors on paper rather than palette. Yeah, my instinct was right. Try it out. Eldon Summers, hi all, welcome aboard. I hope you'll watch the parts you've missed. Lorna Wilson, your painting is great. Thank you so much. Nettie, great work. Ange, your videos brighten my day. Thank you so much for sharing. My pleasure. Pence Palacio, I sometimes overwork and sometimes underwork. If I underwork, I'll get back at it again in a month and probably several months. Yeah, that makes sense. And there's no reason not to. If you still have the painting, if you haven't put it somewhere, framed it, sold it, God forbid, you can still work on it. Jocelyn K, thank you, very enjoyable. Thank you so much. Zaid Thakur, what is it I'm painting? The answer should be mood and atmosphere. Joseph Z, how would you paint a street scene you like with normal mood and light with that advice in mind? Honestly, I just follow the values, Zaid. That's my personal approach. I'll just make sure I match the values as much as I can. I'll do an accurate drawing. I'll match the values accurately, and that's all I'm concerned with. That'll be, for me, kind of a regular lit scene. Usually I choose references that I enjoy painting, so I don't need to invent a mood. I just go with what I see. I hope that makes sense. 456 Barrett, thanks a lot. Yeah, you got it. And yeah, definitely send it over if you're unsure. I can give you a push in the right direction. Minecraft Ram says Super Raika Magsumbol, sorry, says oh. That is art, not says, oh, I'm late, hello. That is Ray Yusuf. Good night, Sri Lanka. Zaid says, thank you for being an awesome teacher, answering everything. Ray says, can you do another one? I'm joking. Very realistic, nice job on the skull. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think this is a good spot to wrap it up. Again, I need to rest. It's been an hour and 10 minutes, so we're pretty close. Usually I say an hour, it's 2 hours. Or an hour and a half. So today I'm way more disciplined. Let me hold it up. Is there a similarity? Hopefully not. Hopefully I'm still not that bad looking due to my fever. But yeah, today my fever is a little down. I'm feeling a lot better. Doing this live stream makes me feel automatically much, much better. So thank you so much for being here. Should we remove the tape? Let's remove the tape real fast. Let's sign and remove the tape real fast. So, I don't know why I always add more things to do for myself. Why do I do that? Why would I say that now? Let's just sign it and remove the tape. I'm kidding. I'm having fun. Okay. So we got the dark paint. Probably took longer than some mixing of the paint on the paper itself. signing just with my full name, nothing original, as always. Here we go. Now let's remove the tape, look at the final result, and then we can continue our day. I like it because it does reach all the way to the border, so removing the tape will kind of look cool in a way. This is what I would consider a good, oops, smear the paint a bit, a good reference to paint. Very clear shapes, yes, a bit of smoother, more kind of nuanced transitions, but a good one to practice. I definitely feel like this is a good one to practice. So give it a try if you want to. I really want to thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. It was really important for me not to skip today's live stream. Because again, there will be too many skipped live streams, but I will try and rest. Saturdays is going to be a new part of the course. A lot of you have been signing up on Udemy for the How to Simplify course. Thank you so much for that. I've received a lot of good reviews too. Really appreciate it. If you want to learn how to simplify, enjoy the painting process, let go if you feel stifled, too stuck on the details, check out the frustration-free watercolor course, link in the description box below, link to the reference photo, link to my sketch stage if you want to recreate it later on. Thank you so much. I will see you again in a future live stream.